After the duel with Luke on Cloud City, where Darth Vader revealed that he was Luke's father, both of them were greatly disturbed by the encounter. Father and son would follow their own path, tethered to the past. Vader became even more obsessed with locating his son and punishing anyone responsible for concealing his child's existence. Vader embarked upon a quest to discover the truth and destroy those who had conspired against him, believing that they had made Luke too weak to answer the call of his Sith destiny. This journey of Vader exploring his past and learning the truth of Padmé's death is explained in the 2020 Darth Vader comic series and the canon book Skywalker: A Family at War. Vader traced Luke's steps all the way back to the cradle of the Skywalker family, Tatooine. Ironically, this was the first place Luke was recorded as living and the last place Vader had thought to look. Confronted by his own haunted past, there Vader found no real answers, only pain and rage. His mother's grave had been virtually obliterated by human intervention or drifting sand. Either way, the very event that had set him on his path to the dark side was all but forgotten by the natural world, a matter of insignificance in its history. And in the Lars home, he imagined neither Shmi nor Anakin had been mentioned with much enthusiasm, if at all. In the burned-out shell of the hovel, Vader stood over the scorched stone dining slab where Klieg Lars had admitted defeat and accepted Shmi's death, and darkened the door of the garage where Anakin had tried to mend his wounded heart by losing himself in some meaningless task. Vader tried to shrug off the phantasms, but they clung to his black cape, irrefutable tokens of his own past. In his joy over discovering Padmé's pregnancy, Anakin had wanted to be present for his son's life, but it was the Lars family that had nurtured and cared for the child, raising him as their own in the place that Shmi had made her home and that Anakin had decreed as her final resting place. Vader moved on to Coruscant, to the apartments of the woman who had carried Luke, a place that, as Anakin, he had known intimately. Some 23 years after his last night of fitful sleep in Padmé's chamber, Vader stood among the dust-covered furniture searching for a clue. Palpatine had claimed that Anakin had killed Padmé in his rage, but once Vader knew that she had survived long enough to deliver the child, he was determined to discover who had seen her die and to have his revenge. A transmitter in the home they shared led him to the jungles of Vendaxa. There, he came face to face with Padmé herself, or rather, her ghost. She seemed taller and older, but she wore the same look of determination, the carefully twisted brown hair, and she spoke with the commanding voice of a queen. Padmé was dead, he told himself furiously. The woman standing before him, hovering in the air as he clasped one hand around her throat through the Force, was not Padmé. It was soon revealed that more than 2 decades after her death, Padmé's handmaiden Sabe still guarded her friend's home from afar, as if keeping watch for a holy spirit prophesied to return. The handmaidens of Amidala were loyal to the end. Sabe had been the queen's double, a bond unlike any other the young queen and politician had enjoyed, and after Padmé's untimely death, Sabe had come to believe that someone had stolen Padmé away and murdered her. Sabe wanted to avenge both the fallen queen and Anakin Skywalker, unaware that she was already standing before all that remained of Padmé's valiant knight, and believing that Vader had likely killed them both. In the rolling hills of Theed, the handmaidens who guarded Padmé's tomb prepared for battle. However, for Vader, fighting her servants exposed him to a welter of highly disturbing emotions. A gap in Vader's armor had appeared when he reached for his son's acceptance, but fighting the veritable twin of his dead wife brought forth feelings of almost unbearable regret. Sabe looked the most like Padmé, but even the others, who had survived the Naboo invasion, the assassination attempts, and the Clone Wars, all exhibited her poise and determination. They could have passed for her sisters, down to their mannerisms, imprinted when they were just teenage girls in charge of a planet. Although Vader had choked Padme's handmaidens into submission, he could not bring himself to end their lives. Then, he committed a transgression that was low even for Vader. He broke into Padme's tomb. On a pillow sewn from Naboo silk, he found the Japor snippet a besotted young Anakin had carved for a queen, a token to ensure she would remember him. He then cracked open the doors of her crypt. The striking facade of her coffin, carved to match her beautiful face in repose, fully exposed the growing weakness in Vader's heart. Vader reached through the Force to break open the stone sarcophagus, but visions of Padme in life and in his final embrace, choked by his hand, flashed unbidden through his mind. The pain that had fueled him for decades turned into a whimper, replaced by a torrent of grief. Vader could not bear to look upon the bones of the mother of his son, her decaying flesh surely almost as unrecognizable as his own skin, modeled beneath his helmet. Instead, his droid scanned her remains and located a medical implant that led Vader to his final destination. Polis Massa had been abandoned, and the maternity ward was in shambles, but inside a midwifery droid's damaged databanks, Vader found the possible starting point of a new beginning. On a holovid recording, made just after the twins were ferried away from their mother, he watched as Padme beckoned to Obi-Wan with her final breath. Despite all Anakin's mistakes, his betrayal of her and the galaxy, Vader learned that Padme had used her last moments to declare her undying belief in the righteous heart of Anakin Skywalker. She told Obi-Wan that she knew there was still good within Anakin. Suddenly, doubt woke within Vader's soul. He had allowed himself to wallow in his grief. Instead of feeding the darkness, he began to question his dedication to the Sith. After more than 2 decades, the conflict within the soul of Anakin Skywalker was reignited by the love of the woman who had refused to believe he was irredeemable.